More on this now. Let's chat to counseling psychologist Jeremy Bayer on the psychological science behind the phenomenon of sports fan violence in stadiums. Good evening, Jeremy. Thanks very much for coming through. What drives a fan, you know, to do what we saw at Moses Mabhida Stadium on Saturday?
Well, in the case of what happened the other night, there are numerous factors involved. The first thing is, from a broader perspective, our history of violence, of solving issues through violence. This is a common factor in South Africa. That's the first thing. Then you have persistent frustration at how the team's performing. You have sort of poor leadership along the way, and people getting frustrated. The fact that Kaizer Chiefs is such a big brand for these people, and in terms of the psychology of a sports fan, there's a thing called basking in reflected glory. In other words, you get a sense of identity from the sports team that you support. So if they win, you'll say, not Kaizer Chiefs won, you'll say we won. So it's a case of my team is letting me down. This thing that I'm supposed to love, that's supposed to perform for me, is letting me down. So these are some of the factors involved, and then maybe alcohol as well, and those kind of things. So, and of course, historical, I guess, tribalism of these teams, the rivalry between Kaizer Chiefs, Orlando Pirates, Sundowns, etc. And unfortunately, you combine all those things, and you have the potential breeding grounds for a riot.
When does being a fan start becoming problematic? What are the signs?
That it, I guess, goes from fan to obsession. So that would be when all you can think about is your sports team, and when they lose, it's sort of taken to heart. So, in other words, it's not just about I enjoy supporting this team. It becomes a definition of who you are. So they're losing, therefore I'm less adequate, I'm not as worthy, because they're an extension of my identity. That's how big this is, because for many people this is an escape. Perhaps in their week they're not enjoying their lives, or things aren't going their way, so the team that they support is an escape. It's their source of happiness. So now this is they're not deriving happiness from this team anymore, and that can make it worse. So the sources are lack of balance in a person's life, unhappiness, and obsession, and this is the only thing that's bringing me happiness, when you can't separate a game from your very worth as a human being.
Where do people get help if you think, you know,
there's this kind of obsession? Well, listen, I will be honest, it is a rare thing that I would get in a therapy practice, but hypothetically I got it. I'll deal with it in the following way. Firstly, to teach about sportsmanship, so what sport should be about in terms of being gracious in defeat, learning about sport, what sport is all about. And then, very important thing psychologically is differentiating between self-confidence and self-esteem. So self-confidence is more about what we do, and self-esteem is who we are. So for example, self-confidence, my confidence as a golfer might be higher than my confidence as a soccer player. But that's about things that I do. But self-esteem is about who we are. Now, often with these people, who you support goes into who you are, the core of who you are. So what I would do in counseling is I'd look at, I guess, priorities. What are the priorities in your life? The fact that you should still love your sport, but to say, actually, what are the more important things? To still use the sense of community that you get through sport, but in the right way. That, you know, those are the benefits that sport does, and not addressing sport in the wrong way. So the tribalism, the fanaticism, the obsession, and the hostility. And that losing at a sports match doesn't define who you are as an individual. It is, after all, a game of soccer or a game of cricket or whatever the case may be. But that your self-esteem is still intact, and that is the most important thing.
But I mean, you know, professional psychological help doesn't come cheap. In fact, it's beyond the reach of many people, and considering the fact that you know, many die-hard football fans are actually, you know, not well off.
Maybe not 100%, and this is why, for the following reasons why. Number one, the relationship between mental health and the media is so important, so that we can educate people on this platform. That's number one. Number two, Listen, I understand that in a counselling perspective in this country, the gap between the haves and the have-nots is a big problem in terms of who can afford. So other options should be going into these communities and educating, doing sort of workshops and that type of thing, and teaching kids about sportsmanship. In the school curriculums, to, putting sort of the values of sportsmanship in the school curriculum, and generally how to treat people, because it's symbolic of respect, and it forms part of a value system. So that should be taught from a young age. We should also be educating parents and psycho-educating them about the dangers of conditional love. So often what happens with children is that or the reasons for this fanaticism is that if I get an A on my maths test, then you'll only be loved. Or if you score 3 goals, only then you'll be loved. And that's dangerous, because it can fuel fanaticism, because you're persistently searching for love for years of your life. And that is highly dangerous. So it's also psycho-educating the parents about unconditional love and being proud regardless. And obviously emphasizing trying your best, but unconditional love. Those are some things that I would do. But I would recommend psychologists to go into the communities, to be proactive, to come onto the media, to facilitate workshops and those kind of things. Is what I know that's the reality, but then at least be proactive and realize that mental health is also a human rights issue, because there are people who are suffering out there, and mental health is a dignity thing. So you've got to go out there as well and teach them as well about these things so that they learn as well.
Ivan Koza, the chairman of the PSL, also blames intolerance, that there are high levels of intolerance within our society.
So that speaks to the subtext of how we treat each other as a society, that generally as a society we are frustrated, that there's high levels of frustration regarding high unemployment, low income, again, the stripping away of people's dignity because they're not getting basic services, and low social status. So you combine all those things together, along with people not seeing change from 1994, and that historical inequality remaining. Put all those factors together, and then you have a perceived injustice, you have a right. So he's absolutely right. There is a bigger picture that we need to deal with here, a much bigger picture, because sport teaches you values like tolerance, like values, like sportsmanship, and those kind of things. So he's absolutely right. It's not just about winning a match 3-0. It's about a bigger picture that we're not only teaching adults, but children as well.
Jeremy, thanks very much for coming through.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Jeremy.